Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website techinterview.guide, and I need to work on one thing here real quick. Just got to get my chatbot up and running. All right, I think we're good to go there. There we go. All right, sweet. Everybody's doing good. It is Sunday morning. Hope you're all doing great. Having kind of a chill day over here. Thought I'd go through a couple of Discord Q&A questions, see if anybody drops by. As always, you're welcome to drop by Twitch anytime. If you're watching this on YouTube later on, please like and subscribe. Just here to help people out and offer my thoughts and opinions and perspectives on getting jobs in the tech industry and so on. Since I'm sitting down, I'm actually going to move some of these logos over here. So let me go do that real quick. There we go. Now we can see them all. All right. Very flattering view of my butt there. Hope you're all doing good. Welcome to the stream. So I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, Tech Interview Guide. It's full of free interview and career prep advice on getting jobs in the tech industry. Although a lot of the advice I like to give out is generic enough, I hope, that it will apply to a lot of different industries and so on. So feel free to drop questions in chat at any time. You'll see little reminders and so on. Also, if you want to ask a question anonymously, you can send a whisper over to my bot and it'll ask anonymously in chat. Thanks for the new follows that came in. Appreciate the new follows over the last couple of days. I hung out in a couple of other channels, and it was cool to meet some other folks that do streaming and so on. And it was neat just to get to know some of them and hear about what they stream about and so on. Let's see what else is going on. So I thought I'd mostly just draw questions from the Discord server today. If you want to join our Discord community, we have. There we go. We've got this link. You can come join us over on Discord. I've got a whole channel over there called Anonymous Questions. And as I get asked questions, I usually drop them in here. And as I answer them on the stream, I mark them as usually mark them with an emoji saying that I've answered them on the stream. I'm going to start doing better about marking like when I've answered it on the stream so that anybody going by there and they see a question, they're like, oh, I want to know the answer to that. It'll tell you like what date I answered it, and you can go find that video on YouTube. Let's see what else is going on. I got my clip bot thing working, so it'll actually store those clips now when I start to answer a question on the stream. I hit like little buttons on my stream deck, and you'll see little things over here in chat that basically say like a clip is starting or a clip has ended, and I've got all that working now. So it will successfully store new clips. And then I've got one more thing I need to finish up on actually processing that after the fact. So the processor after that then is going to go clip out little YouTube videos and little podcast audio for each of those. The YouTube video portion is working, but I do need to re-record the intro and the outro videos. And then I want to re-record the podcast intro and outro as well. And on the podcast one, I used to also do like a little bit of an intro where I would just kind of tease the question, and then it would go into the intro of like, "Hi, I'm Ian. I'm the author of the site, blah blah blah," and then the audio of the question, and an outro of like, "Hey, like this on your podcast software, tell your friends about it, share it with others," and so on. So I need to re-record the intro and outro, but I also need a process now that when I finish and it's going through and it's processing all the clips, that when it says, "What's this podcast clip about?" that when I type that in, it'll prompt me in some way to say, "Hey, go record that as an audio clip, save it as an MP3, and then it'll process that as part of that." So, Augie DD, good to see you in chat. Thanks for dropping by. It's always good to have first-time chatters dropping by the channel. So hello, hello. I'm always curious how folks find the channel, but I hope you're having a great Sunday. Well, it's Sunday here where I am. Not sure where you're located, but hopefully you're having a great day so far. Um, I'm the author of this website, techinterview.guide, and I'm just here to help people get better at interviewing and share my thoughts and perspectives about career advancement, resume reviews, all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, so you're welcome to drop questions in chat at any time. We got stickers and all kinds of interactive stuff. If you hang out in the channel long enough to accrue some channel points, you can change the nano leaf lights behind me, all that kind of stuff. And eventually I'm going to get one to do the light bar here as well, the red light bar that you'll be able to like set that to some other color. But for now, I just have the nano leaf controls. So yeah, so I thought I would draw some questions from the Discord community. So again, you're welcome to drop by Discord at any time. You can ask questions in there. You can also DM me questions on Discord, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, like wherever you hang out. You can send me direct messages. Even here on Twitch, you can send me whispers here on Twitch. And what I do is I take those questions and I'll answer them for you immediately. Well, I mean, as soon as I see them, I'll answer them. And then I may rephrase the question, excuse me, and put it in the anonymous questions channel on Discord. And then when I do a live stream like this, I commonly like pull questions from there. Dota dot Darsh. Not sure how to pronounce your username, but welcome. Good to see you as well. Got a couple of new folks hanging out in chat today. It's great. So yeah, so I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website. You can literally just type techinterview.guide in your browser, and it's a whole bunch of free stuff that I've been writing. I've been in engineering for 26 years professionally. I've been a hiring manager. I've been an engineering director. I've been a dev for 26 plus years professionally, still coding every day. And love to help people out. So a lot of the advice that I give on the site, there's a daily email series that you can subscribe to as well, is just hearing my thoughts and perspectives as an interviewer and as a hiring manager about why we ask questions the way that we do. And not necessarily like, here's how to answer the question perfectly, but like, why is this question even important? And how do you present that in a way that shows me the value that you bring to my company? Because that's really what they're asking in all of these questions. You can kind of take whatever question they're asking and add ... and why should I hire you? And so a lot of the information on the website revolves around that. So you're welcome to go check that out. And I'm always happy to take feedback as well. If you do subscribe to that email series that you see over here in chat, you can reply to any of those messages, and it gets straight to my inbox. And I'm happy to help people out there. Augie DD asks in chat, do you think the current 100 dev students are ready to interview for jobs at startups, to be precise? Ooh, that's a good question. So let me rephrase that a little bit, and I'll tackle that as a question here. So we had a question in chat that I'm going to rephrase a little bit. Do you think the current 100 dev students are ready to interview for jobs at startups? I really like what Leon's doing with the 100 devs community. I think that he's doing a great job training people and getting them ready. And I think that a lot of the freelance work that they're doing to get their first projects, or like their first professional projects out and running, I think he's doing a really great job with that. I think that the quality of what they're producing is quite good. And I like when there is kind of a consistent curriculum to follow. The fact that it's live and Leon and the team do things like office hours to help people out, I think is really good. I think any sort of structured curriculum is going to be good to follow for that kind of thing. As far as when it's too early to interview versus when you're going to feel ready to interview, I think those are a little bit different questions. I think we actually just addressed this in the last stream. You can go check that out if you want. It's up on YouTube. But there's a feeling of, am I ever going to be ready for the interview? But when you do get to a point where you feel like you're ready and you do want to apply, I would say that getting a job at a startup is feasible. It's usually a little bit trickier. Most of my career has been in startups. And it will be trickier for somebody coming out of an education group, whether it's a boot camp or a code camp or even a university program. It's a little bit trickier to get a job at a startup because a lot of startups, they want people that can like hit the ground running and can start working and be effective immediately on the job. And as an entry level dev, you don't necessarily have that. And oftentimes at startups, and I'm talking like companies that are less than 50 people, commonly at startups, you're not going to have as much support as you would at a larger company where you've got a much larger engineering team. Having a larger engineering team there to kind of back you up and offer help and advice and show you around things is going to be necessary at any job. But at a startup, it's going to be much harder because people are busy and they're going to be running around doing all kinds of stuff. So it's not impossible to get a job at a startup. The it's just you're not going to have as much support as you might like. The other downside to being at a startup is you may get lower pay. Maybe. Not always, not always, but sometimes startups don't pay as much, and they may try to offer you equity instead. I typically tell people don't get paid in equity, especially as your first job in tech. The nice thing is that whatever your salary is, like whatever job you take, whatever that salary is, does not have to influence future salary. So your value increases over time. As you learn and as you grow, your value increases over time. And so don't ever let salary hold you back as far as like, if someone asks what your salary history is, you don't ever have to tell them. You can just say it's not valid for what my value on the market is today. This is the range I'd like to be making. But at startups, they'll typically say, well, we can pay you a little bit less and we'll make it up in equity. That can be beneficial if you plan on staying at the startup for a really long time and if you invest your money in that equity. But if they're fairly new, like Series A, Series B, or even earlier, like seed round, even if they're Series A, Series B, it could be 5 years to 10 years before they actually have like a big like exit event where you can do something with those shares that you bought, whether they go public or get acquired or something like that. It's not a typical fast turnaround on that sort of thing. And so you're more likely to be sitting on that stock for a really long time before you can do anything with it. And so at the end of the day, what they've paid you in salary pales pretty drastically to what you could be making at another job. So to go back and kind of answer the question a little bit, like when are 100 devs students or bootcamp students or any new student ready to interview for a job? I would say you can start the research around those companies at any time. In fact, the earlier you start that research, the better, especially if those companies have APIs, libraries, tools that you can build into your projects or build a project with. It stands out so much more to those companies to get a job with them because you're not just showing up saying, hi, I'm Ian and I've got these skills on my resume. You're showing up saying, hi, I'm Ian. I'm a user of your software and I like it so much that I want to be part of the team. It's a totally different introduction. So the sooner you can start that research and the sooner you can start building their tooling or their library or API or whatever into your project, or you build a website that looks like theirs, or you build a project that's in line with what their company does, you're going to stand out much more to that company than just showing up with a resume and applying for the job kind of blindly and not having a good way to tie in like this is the value that I bring to the company, but this is also why I'm really passionate about this job. That's what's going to make you really stand out. So you can start that company research at any time. When do you actually want to apply? I would say if you can have at least one project on your resume that's going to really entice them to call you, that would be a good time to apply. So even if the project's not 100% polished, I think that that's still okay. You're still showing what we call alignment. You're still showing alignment with the company by having something that um, that shows the value that you're bringing to the company. Like you're passionate about what they do, you're passionate about the kinds of people that they're serving as a company, or that you're a user of their software and you really want to help continue to maintain that and build that. Cool. Appreciate the question. Thanks for dropping that in chat. This is typically how I run my stream. So people drop by, they ask questions. You'll see the little clip markers over here, and that's just tracking the start and end times in a database for me. so that later on I've got a Python script that goes through and it actually clips those out into smaller YouTube videos that you can go check out. So I actually haven't done the clipped videos for quite a while, but the little clip videos then get extracted. The audio gets extracted and sent over to my podcast. So I've got like an audio podcast that you can listen to. And then I put the same things up on YouTube, and on YouTube I put them into different playlists. So that would be a good one around like general preparation for the job interview and so on. Midnight Smith, good to see you in chat. We're doing more job post reviews. Yeah, the job post reviews are great. I love doing those. I love trashing those a little bit. So if you want me to critique a job post, I'm happy to do that. Feel free to just drop one in chat if you want. If you've got enough channel points to redeem for that, that would be great. But since we had a bunch of new people drop by, that's okay. If you have an idea of a job post where you want my opinion, like being in the tech industry for a long time or having been a hiring manager who used to write job posts, I know what goes into making a good resume. I know what goes into making a good job post. And diversity is something that's really important to me. And so I look at job posts nowadays with a very critical eye from a viewpoint of how well is this company kind of lining up with what they claim, like where they want diversity and equity and things like that. Like how well is their job post really lining up with that? So I got a new follower, Gadudis. I think that's how you pronounce your name.
Welcome.
Thanks, appreciate the follow. Like doing little blinky lights and some sort of background music, hopefully for you. My Spotify has stopped working. Been talking all this time with no background music. Not sure why that stopped. Let me get some background music going here. Get that turned down. There we go. Get a little bit of background tunes going for you here. And then is this working? Yeah, that sound effects are working. But for some reason, Spotify didn't start up. So, Fatboy1271, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. Hello, hello, hello. Midnight Smith dropped a job post in there. I've been looking at this one for 6 months. It hasn't been filled, wondering why. Ooh, that's a good one. Let's dive in on that one. So let me pull that up in a browser first, and then I'll go find that browser, and then we'll go pull this one down. Valero, that's the gas station company, right? Just resize some things here. Ah, shoot, that's not what I wanted. A lot of days I'm really thankful for the whole Control-Shift-T, Command-Shift-T thing in Chrome, where if you accidentally close it, you can like reopen it again. Well, let me go over to that screen. Let me get that pulled up in a browser here. Description looks like the one. All right, let me resize this and reposition this a little bit here. It's always weird how OBS constantly resizes these things on me. There we go. I'll shrink that up over here. There we go. Cool. Let's dive in on this one. So Midnight Smith in chat posted a job post. I wanted a job post critique, and I love doing these on the stream. And the message that they wrote in chat said they've been looking at this job post for 6 months and it hasn't been filled, and I'm wondering why. A couple of things here. So the first one is it's posted on a subdomain of this Talio.net website. So a couple of things could be going on here as far as why the job hasn't been filled yet. Either the company's super picky, or they haven't like maintained this job post. So a lot of companies use like big platforms like LinkedIn and Indeed, Monster.com, Dice.com, that sort of thing. I haven't heard of this Talio.net website myself, but it could be that they have put this job post out on several like job boards trying to find talent, and it could just be that they haven't maintained it and they just never took it down. That could be one reason why. It's an Oracle-based company. Okay, I mean, if it's an Oracle-based company, then it's it's a pretty big name. I haven't actually heard of Talio though, but let's dive in a little bit. A lot of large places use Talio now. Interesting. That's cool. Let's dive in a little bit. So SAP Um, so a bit of background. We take our people anywhere they want to go around the globe. Our 10,000 employees work together as a team with the single goal of maintaining our status as a top petroleum refiner and ethanol producer. As an employee, not only will you have an opportunity to impact people's lives, you'll be a part of a culture that thrives on positively impacting the people in the communities where we live and work. Cool. So as an SAP developer, you'll be part of a project team. Yep. Delivers high quality, low maintenance software solutions that are fast and efficient to achieve defined business goals. Okay. You will have significant influence on application design and architecture while creating custom applications that support strategic initiatives and build value to. There's a lot of buzzwords in here. As an engineering manager, I wouldn't make it quite so buzzwordy. I know a lot of HR and legal and marketing teams are like, oh, we gotta put this thing in here about like strategic initiatives and whatever. It's like doesn't need to be in there for your typical developer. Working in close collaboration with end users and your teammates through our IS departments, you'll develop system functionality using S4HANA technologies and Fiori design principles. Never heard of Fiori design principle, so I'm going to go look that up. To enable and empower business objectives. There's a lot of buzzwords in here. I think you could drastically simplify this down to people who don't understand what most of this terminology means. So from an accessibility point of view, the complexity of having to read this is probably going to turn a bunch of people away, or they're just going to skip over it completely. Midnight Smith says in chat, buzzy buzzwords. Yeah, for sure. Got to hit down search queries. Exactly. That's exactly right. So as a developer on the application development system team, you're a member of a select team that has the ability to make an impact within many of the different departments. Key competency: problem solving, initiative, results orientation, and interpersonal skills. Okay. So when I break this down and go, well, what does this really mean? So problem solving means they've got some sort of novel thing that they want you to solve, and you're going to have some sort of process of breaking those things down and a means to try to solve that. Initiative means you can sort of see when things need to be done. Similar to how, like, I tell my kids, like, hey, if you see something that needs to be done, if you see that the floor needs to be swept, sweep the floor. If you see that there are dishes in the sink, do some dishes. Initiative as a developer is really like if you see some code that, like, it smells like we literally call it code smell, or something that we might call technical debt. If you've got some time and the opportunity to go make that better for the team, that's how I would see initiative. Results orientation, again with the buzzwords, like you care about results. Just tell me you care about the outcomes. Interpersonal skills. This is really important for teamwork. So I think that this is a good thing to put in a job post, but it's almost a redundant thing to put in a job post. Like being part of a team, like you should be a team player. Our goal of Valero is to continue to be the premier manufacturer distributor. Yeah, you've already told me all of this. Petrochemical feedstock while serving the needs of our employees. Yeah, they've already told me all of this already, like a bunch of times. So responsibilities: demonstrate passion for a continuous improvement and accountability. Okay. Transform business requirements for large-scale systems into technical solutions. Business requirements for large-scale systems. Okay, we're going to come back to this one. Partner with developers, business analysts, and end users to deliver efficient solutions. Demonstrate strong programming analytical skills with a creative, user-focused mindset. I love this. They really want you to have like that user mindset of like, why am I building this for a user? When we build out our resumes for a job like this, the fact that they want a user-focused mindset means that anytime you're putting your projects on a resume, you should have a user empathy statement, like user can blah, blah, blah more efficiently, et cetera, and not just, here's my project name, I built it in JavaScript, Node, Express, like, so what? You built a project using technology, but who is it for? What do they do? What do they do with it? And so having a user empathy statement is going to be really important to this company. where you call out like, this is what the user can do, this is why I built it for this particular kind of person, and so on. So you're going to want to keep that sort of thing in mind if you're crafting a resume for this job. Plan and execute complex development efforts to deliver great quality on schedule. Be organized and communicate efficiently through written and verbal methods. I mean, I don't know that this could get any more generic, but okay. This is pretty vanilla as far as like wording goes. Like this is literally the expectation at every job. There's nothing new or novel about any of this. I think the one thing that really stands out here is large scale systems. This is a very big company. And so the code that you write for this company is going to have a big impact on everybody that this touches. So there's going to be some things that you're going to want to sort of watch out for here, as far as like optimizations and so on, that may turn some people away that have never worked on large scale systems before, or even a large system, much less a scalable system. So we'll come back on that. Bachelor's degree or higher in computer science, MIS engineering, IT, or related field or equivalent required. Okay, so it is required that you have a degree. As I've said in many, many streams, most jobs in our industry don't actually require a degree. So don't let this hold you back. If you think that you otherwise meet the qualifications for this job, go apply for that job anyway. And you can explain to them why you don't need a degree for this kind of role. 5 years of object-oriented development using either SAP, ABAP, objects, Java, or C# required. 5 years working with relational databases, SQL scripting, and data modeling required. 5 years of S4, HANA tech, such as Core Data Service, OData Service using the NetWeaver Gateway. Okay. I mean, I like that they've named all of these things as required, and then they have a number of preferred requirements. This is something that we talked about in the last stream when we were looking at the job post from Night Transportation. We were talking about like which of these things are actually required and which of these things would be nice to have. In this case, you know, they called these requirements and then they put the word required on the end of all of these lines. It's like, okay, well, it's a little redundant because you've told me that that's a requirement. If it's a preferred requirement, is it required or is it preferred? So I would just call this like preferred additional skills or something like that, because it doesn't make sense to call this a preferred requirement if it's not required. It just means that they're going to give more opportunity for the people that meet these additional requirements. They're probably going to interview those people first. Midnight Smith asks in chat, can you expand a little on why to apply anyway when it says required and not preferred? Depending on the kind of work that we do as developers, you don't necessarily have to have a CS degree. Having any kind of degree, I think is going to be fine. But if you are trained and you can demonstrate that you can do the job, I wouldn't let the fact that you don't have like a CS degree hold you back from applying for a job ever. You will learn a lot of like, so to qualify this, like to compare a CS degree and a boot camp or a program like 100 Devs or FreeCodeCamp or, you know, 100 Days of Coding, you know, all these kinds of structured programs. You're learning how to use tools to go build applications. A CS degree is teaching you how to go build those tools. So a CS degree is going to help you build like the next great programming language, because you're going to learn about compilers and you're going to learn about low-level machine code execution and threading and multi-threading and multiprocessing and things like that. And for large-scale systems, that could be important, but you can also learn those things on the side. You don't have to go get a whole 4-year degree to learn how to make an application scalable. You can go learn that stuff later on. So that's why I say, like, you can go apply for that job anyway. If it's on them where they, like, that is a hard requirement, then it's a hard requirement. But don't let it stop you from applying. King440 asks in chat, can you explain that to them in a cover letter? As far as the education side of it, if that's what you're asking, I think they're going to see from your resume whether or not you have a CS degree, or their applicant tracking system software is going to have like a spot for your education, and you're gonna have some sort of answer in there from the application as to whether or not you have that degree. And they might disqualify you outright just based on that. And that's kind of on them. But I would say if you think you otherwise qualify for this job, especially if you had any of these other like preferred skills, I wouldn't call them preferred requirements. I would just call them preferred skills. I would really call these out and say, hey, you know what? I don't have a degree, but I've got this other experience. Now, they are asking for very specific experience here. They're asking for very specific, SAP, whatever this S4 HANA technology is, core data services, O data services, NetWeaver gateway. Like they're looking for a very specific kind of developer here. SAP UI5, like they're not even explaining what this stuff is. So you'd have to like go look it up and go, what even is this stuff? If you've worked in this stuff, then, you're probably searching for, I'm going to go look for another S4 HANA kind of job. And you'll find job posts like this. But if you don't even know what these terms are, then you're, according to their minimum requirements, you're already not going to get the job because you're not going to have a lot of these things. But I think if you've got equivalent skills in some of these other things, if you can demonstrate like, hey, I don't know that specific technology, but I have something like sort of parallel to that. Like, for example, if they say like, you must know Ruby, it's like, well, I know Python, so learning Ruby is not going to be a big deal. Or I know JavaScript, so learning Ruby is not going to be a big deal. I know C#, so learning Ruby is not going to be a big deal. A lot of companies will take that into account. But because they're looking for very specific skills, it may be a little bit trickier to pull that off. But if you've got some of these other like preferred requirements that you can sort of transition over and say like, hey, I don't have these core skills, but I do have a lot of these other skills that I can still bring to the team, they may still consider you. You never know. Like big companies like Valero, they're going to have like lots of positions open and lots of opportunity to hire people and sort of see what they're capable of. So as opposed to smaller companies, like we had a question earlier on the stream about like going and working at a startup. Startups have very few positions open, and they're also looking for very targeted sort of technology stacks and so on to kind of get the job done. These folks are also looking for a very specific stack. So going back to what Midnight Smith was asking at the very beginning, I've been watching this job post for 6 months. Why hasn't it been filled yet? They're probably extremely picky about these requirements. That would be my presumption here. Well, let's take a look at some of this other stuff. So WebDyn Pro, FPM, ABAP, managed database. Okay. CSS, HTML, JavaScript. JavaScript has a capital S. Do your own due diligence. SAP functional modules, business object processing framework. Like they're looking for extremely specific technologies. So that's probably why the job is still open 6 months later, is because like when they write these job posts, they're looking for this mythical unicorn, that may or may not exist. In this case, they're looking for very highly targeted skill sets. So you can literally come in, drop in on the team, and everything that the team knows as far as the technology. You know how to use all these technologies, and you can just go start building code right away. They just have to train you up on their particular like process or procedure, and you're ready to like start deploying code to production. Is basically what this job reads as. So is it good? Is it bad? I mean, we'll keep going. We'll keep kind of breaking this down a little bit. The above description reflects the primary job function may not include all detailed job functions performed in the role. That's pretty typical. And then they go into benefits. 7% match on a 401k. That's pretty great. With immediate vesting. That's cool. Annual bonus, company-sponsored pension. I mean, pension's great if you stick around for a really, really, really long time. On-site daycare. That's cool. On-site employee family wellness center. State-of-the-art 24-hour fitness center, free for employees and spouses. They basically don't want you to leave. When you think about this, they don't want you to leave their sort of campus. It also sounds like it's very much on premise, like no remote work kind of position. Position level and salary will be commensurate with qualifications, but if they're trying to recruit people in the state of Colorado, they've got to put that salary on here. Employees are the heart of its success. Yeah, it's just benefit stuff. So San Antonio. So I mean, the fact that they're talking very much about like, here's all the stuff we have on site, and it's in San Antonio. They're probably going to expect that you're going to relocate to San Antonio to take this job. That's probably why the job is still open 6 months later. Is it a good job post? Is it a bad job post? They don't talk a lot about like diversity, equity, sort of background. And I think a lot of what they're looking for here is a very, very specific background. That's not necessarily going to disqualify, people from different sorts of backgrounds, ethnicities, and so on from a diversity point of view. But I mean, let's be honest, just getting a degree in computer science is kind of a highly privileged sort of position to be in life, to even go get a degree. So they're already kind of targeting a specific kind of demographic where they're probably going to have a lot more men on the team, a lot more white people on the team. But yeah, I mean, as a company, they're like, oh yeah, we care all about our employees, but they don't say anything at all about diversity other than, will receive consideration for employment, but they don't actually talk about like, this is, we care about diversity on the team or whatever. They're just like, everybody can apply, but they don't specifically call out like, we care about diversity on the team. Just something that's important to me. So in your company research, as you're researching companies, and if that's something that's important to you, this would be how I would kind of filter that out and go, okay, well, a degree is required, highly specific skills are very required. It's probably not going to be a very diverse company. Overall, is it a good or bad? I mean, I would give this probably a solid like B minus, because it's very buzzwordy. Like this intro, like I wasn't quite falling asleep reading through this, but it's a lot of buzzwords. As far as the responsibilities are super, super generic. From a requirements point of view, again, very highly specific skill set. Even their preferred requirements, even calling it preferred requirements, is what do they call it? A paradox, where it can't be preferred and a requirement. Like it's either an optional skill or it's not. It can't be both. But yeah, if you do bring experience from the oil and gas industry, then it's less that they have to train you as to like why certain things are important. But overall, I don't think it's a horrible job post. But it is very, very highly specific as far as what they're looking for. They're literally, my take on this is their management team is very inflexible as far as like, we literally want to hire somebody and drop them in the team. Well, if Midnight Smith mentioned this job post has been open for 6 months. What if they had hired somebody 6 months ago that didn't know half of these skills? They could have trained you on these skills in 6 months and you'd be up and running just fine, and they wouldn't have had this job post open for such a long time. So companies need to take that into consideration too. Like, when do you start sort of relaxing these sort of requirements and just train people on the skills that they don't know? If you find someone that's going to be good on the team, hire them and train them on the technical skills that they don't know. Those things are teachable. So I think companies could do better on that. So yeah, I'd say overall, good B minus on that. Generally, pretty good job post. Cool. Thanks, Midnight Smith. I always enjoy going through those. Stackerbat says, I never thought about the phrase preferred requirements like that. Yeah, it's really strange. Like, it's either, it's a nice to have or it's a must have. I mean, those are the only two ways that I see that. So when I was writing job posts back in the day, it was like, need to have all these things, and it was just this giant bullet point and blah, 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 all these things. And then eventually it's like, well, okay, well, which ones do I really need to have on the team? It's like, okay, well, we really would prefer to have you have that knowledge of whatever programming language that we're in, maybe a specific database we were using. But everything after that is like, yeah, it'd be cool if you knew this, it'd be cool if you knew that, it'd be cool if you could help out with this or that. but not necessarily make it a hard requirement. Otherwise, you're keeping people from even applying for the job because they look at that and go, geez, I don't qualify for like most of the stuff on this list. And you end up having people not apply. Hey, Juggling Biohazards, good to see you. Just kind of going back through chat here. So King440 says, if you write a cover letter for applying to this company, how would you write it? For that particular company, so they really cared about user empathy, and they really cared about very specific skills. So any cover letter, so I've got a whole YouTube video that you can go watch on how to write a cover letter for the tech industry. But typically the first paragraph is introducing yourself and why you're applying for that particular role. Like, what is it about that role that really stands out to you? Why are you applying there? What value are you bringing? The second paragraph is kind of looking at the list of skills that they put in their job post and you highlighting how you've used those skills. Try to do it in the same order as their cover letter. And then the third paragraph is really just reinforcing why you're a good candidate for the role and when they can contact you. I usually tell people, like, wrap up that third paragraph, not from a Carly Jepsen, like, call me maybe, kind of like, I look forward to hearing from you. Tell them when you want them to call. Say, I'm available. I'm actively interviewing now. I'm available over the next 3 weeks in the afternoons. You can call me any afternoon for the next 3 weeks as I'm actively interviewing for a role. That kind of is going to trigger a little bit of that FOMO of like, oh, we're going to miss out on this opportunity. We're going to miss out on this candidate if we don't call them. And so it'll trigger that psychologically a little bit for them. And you'll probably get more responses to your cover letters. But the cover letter is really to give context and background to what you have on the resume. And so it shouldn't just be a bullet point list of what's on your resume. That's what the resume is for. Likewise, the resume doesn't have to go into a lot of explanation as to like how or why you did a project. You can explain that in the cover letter. So they can kind of balance each other out. I typically tell people the cover letter is kind of the creative writing version of your resume. You want to give more depth and more sort of perspective into the skills that you're listing on your resume and how you apply those skills and in different projects and how all of that is bringing benefit to that company. The cover letter just needs to really explain well, the immediate value that you bring to their team when you apply for that job. Midnight Smith says, comparatively looking around, they have another posting that's not as buzzwordy, but very different in structure. Let's go pull that one up. So technical training specialist. Create and manage technical training programs targeted at building technical and operational knowledge. So this job post that Midnight Smith dropped is for an in-house trainer for technical skills. So they want you to come in and basically build curriculum. And I've been seeing a lot more companies doing this. I actually took a job doing this a year ago with a startup that I worked at several years prior to that, where they wanted me to come in and actually be an internal trainer. Unfortunately, as soon as I started that job, I needed shoulder surgery, and I was out for 8 weeks, like right away. And so it just didn't work out as far as a job. So I was back. So I decided to leave that job and start a job hunt. And so that was kind of December, January timeframe. Started a new job in January this year. But I'm seeing a lot more companies hire for these kinds of roles for internal trainers, which I think is a really good thing to promote as a company. It's like, hey, we're going to take care of your technical knowledge. We're going to keep you up to speed and up to date on all these things. But what we wanted to do at Stream, where I was doing this role, what we wanted to do was relax our job post requirements and say like, hey, if you're a good team player, if you're a good collaborator, you can communicate well, and you have, at least some of the core things that we need you to have, we're going to train you on what you don't have. And so my role was basically to write up the curriculum, but then also assist with the interviews where we could say like, okay, well, Stackerbat came in and applied and they were really good at the Go programming language, but they weren't very good on Postgres. So we would make a note of like, give them this Postgres curriculum And then if we got to the offer stage, we'd say like, hey, we're going to hire you, but we also want you to go through this curriculum. It'll be part of your on-job orientation, so you don't have to do it ahead of time, but we want you to like get up to speed on this technology, that technology, because you didn't demonstrate it during the interview process, but we're still going to extend the offer anyway. And so the idea was that we could have like a better sort of outcome for hiring by relaxing those requirements on the job post, get more people to apply for these jobs, screen them during the interview process as far as who best matches the technical skills and so on that we are looking for, and then train them on what they don't have. So this second role that Midnight Smith dropped in here looks like that kind of role. Um, they're looking for different ways of like coming up with training material and work on like I'm just kind of scanning through. Yeah, like what I like about this one, I'm gonna switch over to this one real quick. What I like about this job post, this is a much better sort of way of writing out what's required and what would be preferred. So a successful candidate will have, and these things are required. You must have a high school diploma or GED. You must have 5 years of experience refining operations, maintenance, craft, or safety. Okay, so they're probably looking for someone who's specifically training about these things as opposed to like technical skills, like, oh, you didn't know that, particular buzzwordy, core data services. It doesn't sound like they're training on that technical aspect, but maybe training around safety and equipment. Experience facilitating technical training content such as operations, maintenance, safety related. Yeah, which is what we just said. So they're looking for someone to come in and specifically train on safety procedures or whatever. But I think it would be good if they also had something, considering that this job's been open for 6 months because they're looking for highly targeted skills, go hire a technical trainer to go teach those other skills so that people without those skills could go apply for that job. And now you've got someone that can say, hey, you know what, for your first month on the job, we're going to get you up to speed on this stuff. They would end up saving money and time waiting to hire the exact perfect person to drop in on the team if they would just hire somebody who had most of the skill or even some of the skill and just train them on the rest. But I really like how the most competitive candidates will have these preferred skills. So I like the way that they worded that. Ability to travel 50-60%. Some people are willing, some people are able to travel. Not everybody is. It would be nice if they were a little bit flexible around like remote teaching for this kind of thing too. All successful candidates must be eligible to obtain transportation worker identification credential. Cool. Yeah, I like that. I like this way better as far as like writing out this is a hard requirement and this is a preferred sort of skill that we would also love to have. Yeah, Midnight Smith was asking, could the in-house trainer train the SAP person? Maybe. I mean, that would be the other thing too, is like have that trainer then train other trainers. So that was also kind of my goal. So one of the first things that I did in that role, I was like the director of education at that job. And one of the things that I did was I wrote curriculum on how to write curriculum. So if someone else came in with a technical skill that I didn't have that we wanted to train the team on, then then they had a guide of here's how to build curriculum, here's how to build a workshop, here's how to go like actually train somebody with that and get them up to speed and like do like a check for understanding and all this kind of stuff that they understand these concepts and so on. So it made for a much nicer transition as far as that training kind of thing goes. Hey Miller, we're good to see you in chat as well. King 440 asked for a resume review. So if you want a resume review, I typically ask that you submit it through this form, but it's okay. If you want me to do it live while we're here, I can pull that up. The reason being that I usually ask people to anonymize their contact information. But let me open that link and let's see what we got. Juggling Biohazard says, I also like there's a difference between required and preferred. Many job posts I run into just demand so much. And you're not sure what they're ending up being lenient on. That's exactly it. yeah, with those job posts where it's just a giant bullet point list of all those things, you don't know like where's the give and take? Like what do I really need to have versus like what would you like me to have? Cool. So I got that OneDrive link open. So let me. Oh, Microsoft. Why do you have to be that way? I can't zoom in on it. All right, let me download it. So King 440, if you're cool with me like showing that on the stream, then I'm happy to like pull that up on the stream and give you a review kind of as is. But typically I like to ask that people anonymize things just so your real phone number and stuff isn't out there. But you've already shared it, so I presume that you're going to be okay with me sharing it. So, but let me know in chat if it's okay to just show it as is. And yeah, I'll give you a resume review right here, right now. If anybody else has a resume that you want me to review, you can send it through that link if you want. If you want to just go in and quickly just remove your name, your phone number, your email address, and send over a PDF, you can send it over to that list or over to that page, and I'll pull those up right now. We'll do a bunch of resume reviews today. Says, please go ahead. All right, cool. Let's dive into a resume review. All right, so we had somebody in chat drop a resume and asked if we could review it. They said that it was okay to review it as is. So we'll dive in a little bit. So the first thing that really stands out is the bright magenta, bright magenta LinkedIn link here, which is fine. A little bit of color on a resume is totally okay. I would probably get rid of this border and stuff around your name. I think that could get cleaned up a little bit. The first thing I typically like to do on a resume is zoom out and kind of see what the overall usage of the page is. The fact that you're scrolling or that you're sort of overlapping into a second page tells me you could tighten this thing up and tighten up some of the content on here and just get a one-page resume out of this, especially with how you're kind of grouping up your skills. So I'll talk about that a little bit, but I think overall the layout could be a little bit cleaner, a little more compact, to where the header's not this big giant block at the top taking up a bunch of room, and then you end up spilling over into a second page. The only other thing that you could do there is fill up more, put more content on that second page, like more projects, or tell me a little bit more about, relevant work experience or something like that. It looks like you've been in the industry for a while, so I think that'll be fine. But let's dive in on this a little bit here. So I like that you're giving yourself a title. I like that you're not leveling yourself as senior, junior kind of thing. I think that's a wise move. I always tell people, let the company evaluate your level. Let them figure out, whether they feel you're kind of entry level, intermediate, senior, principal. Like, just apply for the job. Say you are a software developer. That's really all you need to tell them there. You get your email. It's a clickable link. Your LinkedIn is a clickable link. I might get like a GitHub link on here as well if you've got a GitHub profile, or some other way of seeing like project work or things like that, and like how you contribute to projects and things like that might be neat to see. So I'd probably condense this up a little bit. I'd get rid of this outline thing around your name. If you're going to write a cover letter for a job, I usually tell people this summary is the first thing to go away on the resume. Instead, I would put your skills block here. As a hiring manager, I want to see in a hurry, is this person qualified for the job that I'm looking for? So I know, like, kind of going back to those job posts that we just critiqued on the stream a minute ago, I know which of those skills I have more strict requirements over as opposed to which ones I have flexibility on. And so I would like to see that skills block up at the very top. And instead, I would like to see a cover letter sort of accompany this, where you can tell me all of this stuff and take this off the resume and take the skills block down here, and I would put that up top. And what I would do there is you kind of group up languages here, and then you get into like a couple of frameworks, some of your databases. So you're kind of grouping it up here, but I think you could do it more in a horizontal format as opposed to these like really wide vertical columns. I think that you could do a bit better job making them horizontal instead. Because like React kind of belongs over here with like Angular and Node. Even if you don't know it as well, like you kind of bury it down here in the bottom, I would probably put it up here. So I think you could do something a little different on that, and I'll show you an example of how I might group those up in a little bit. Because one of the things that I want to start doing on the stream is like show you a little bit more of like here's how I might reformat your resume, and so I think I'll do that with your skills block just to show you. From a career history point of view, you've been at this job for a number of years now, which is great. This job was relatively short. You weren't there quite a full year, which is fine. If you got a story to tell about it, then that's fine. This one, you were here for a couple of years. Freelance self-employed, that's totally okay to put on a resume. You may want to explain a little bit about like what kind of work you did as a freelancer. Otherwise, I'm like, were you really self-employed, or were you just like kicking back watching Netflix and playing video games, for that period of time? Because it wasn't a huge amount of time. It's only like 7 or 8 months. So if you could list out like what were some of the projects or some of the key technologies that you used while you were freelancing, I think that would be more beneficial to the resume. Full stack as well. This one was also almost 2 years. So yeah, so you've got a good history of like showing me that you're going to stick around at a job for several years. A couple of short little jobs. No major gaps really stand out for me. You're currently working here. You went right from that job to that job. You went right from this job to this job. You went right from your sort of freelance work to this job, right from here into your freelance work. So again, from an outsider's perspective, looking at this, I would say, okay, well, this was either like an 8-month gap, or you really did freelance work. But I would want to know what you did with that freelance time. Like what sort of things did you work on? So from that point of view, I think you present that well. I like that you're also saying that you work remote on all those jobs, so it's really showing like a strong ability to work remotely as part of a team, and the fact that you've been at these jobs a really long time. Build and lead talented team to deliver projects. So building a team is kind of a management role. Here you're a lead engineer doing back-end and DevOps, so you're overlapping a lot of things. But if you're building a team, then that's more on the management side of it. Like if you're helping with interviewing, I might call that out as a separate bullet point as far as like building and leading. Create robust, detailed project plans and strategies, develop highly scalable microservice framework and microservices. I mean, this is a little bit redundant here. I would say developed highly scalable microservices and custom framework or something like that. But to put microservice in here twice is a bit redundant. Developed and maintained CI/CD pipelines for integration testing and deployment using Jenkins, GitHub Actions. I would probably just say developed and maintained Jenkins, GitHub Actions, CI/CD pipelines for integration testing. I think you could reword it to where it's not quite so long. I usually tell people a bullet point shouldn't go farther than where these dates are. So like this line is probably as long as I would make any bullet point on the page, because you want those dates to be kind of isolated down the side if you can. That would be really preferable. Just from a reader point of view and sort of visual design point of view, it kind of isolates those dates into a sort of a column of its own, even though it's not actually a column. So as much as possible, try not to let a bullet point wrap on the page, and try to shorten them. If you do have a bullet point that is that long, it probably needs to be split into multiple things. Developed and maintain monitoring infrastructure using Prometheus, Alert Manager, distributed tracing to identify, visualize, improve the stability and functioning of microservice infrastructures. I mean, this is what monitoring is. So I don't know that you need to really explain that. You can just say developed and maintain, because when you think about it, like you developed this stuff, but then you didn't go on to explain like how and why is it scalable and whatever. But here you're kind of explaining like what these things do that you just called out. So I think that all of this could get removed. This whole second line could get removed. Golang, Node, gRPC. I would probably also just write Go as a language. Not everybody's going to search in a database for the word Golang. I think you could just do a Go on here as well, or do both. Do Go/Golang. That way you're hitting on both of those keywords. gRPC, Google Cloud. Yep, all this stuff looks good. Node.js, just check your spelling on that. So Node.js is actually node.js. So make sure that you get that dot in there on the resume. That's just one of those like attention to detail thing that some people are gonna sort of notice. So just make sure you get the little dot in here. MongoDB is gonna be capital DB, things like that. Interesting that you used both AWS and Heroku, considering Heroku's built on AWS. Developed innovative iOS, Android, and web apps. Applied a data-driven approach to project tracking and reporting to ensure cohesive, consistent operation. This is very buzzwordy, but that's fine. Advise senior leadership regarding cutting-edge technologies and change management to align solutions with best-in-class standards. Trying to think of a way that you could like shorten that to be like to not wrap around, because again, you like as much as possible, you don't want these bullet points to wrap if you can help it. Started as a sole member of the development team, grew to 5 people strong. Led a team to develop a highly scalable video on demand platform from scratch. I would say like to create and develop, and then you can get rid of the words from scratch because you've created it. Incorporated features including digital rights management, video encryption, playback everywhere, multi-bit rate streaming, user group management, heat map, analytics, custom branding. This is a lot of stuff that you did at this job. And I would probably group these a little bit different. So things like DRM, video encryption, those are kind of related. Playback everywhere, multi-bit rate streaming, those are related. User group management, okay. Heat map analytics, pre-roll advertising, like these are kind of related. I might put these out actually as separate bullet points. Just that way they're kind of seeing like these are kind of the key areas instead of just blending it all together into a single thing that's like sort of wrapping on multiple lines. So yeah, like you're doing a really good job explaining all of these roles except for your freelance work. So to me, it just looks not suspicious, but I would like to see more detail about that freelance job. So you've got a really cool background. You've got some really neat stuff on your resume. This one is a lot more sentence than how you've written your other bullet points. Your other bullet points are not fully grammatically correct, which is the right way to write a bullet point, but this one feels more like an actual written sentence. So again, I would probably like trim out some of the filler words and make it not grammatically correct just to shorten it up a little bit. And then spoken communication for that. Cool. Let's grab this. Let me show you what I might do. In here, let me pull up a Google Doc. So here's what I might do for that skills block. So when I paste it in, it does this, by the way. And so this is how every other applicant tracking system is going to see this. What I might do is I might group up like languages, and then I might do like frameworks, and then we'll do like databases and tools. Oops. And then we might do like systems, and then, you know, practices or something like that. So languages, we have Go, Golang, PHP. You're probably going to know some SQL because you work in actual SQL databases. Frameworks, we've got Node.js. So you've got TypeScript and JavaScript. So we'll do TypeScript and JavaScript. So we got Node.js, we got Angular 2+, we got React.js. Hey, Midnight Smith, thanks for the cheer bits. See what else we got in here. Databases, we got MySQL, Postgres, MongoDB, we got Redis on here. Practices, we have API development in REST, gRPC, WebSockets. Hey, ThetaSec, thanks for the follow. We're just doing a resume review for someone, and I'm showing them how I might reformat their skills block here. And then for systems, you got Google Cloud, AWS. We could also put your monitoring tools like Prometheus on here as well. Prometheus and Grafana. Let's see, what else are we missing? Linux server administration. I mean, you could put that in here as well. So Linux DevOps. And then you also had Docker and Kubernetes. And then, let's see, where would we put serverless on here? That's kind of development stuff. So I might actually put it here with practices. So we'll do like serverless, doing GCP Cloud Run and AWS Lambda. So that's how I would kind of break that out as a skills block. So I do like a skills header, and then for these things, I might like throw a bold or something on these. Now, if you find that these lists are too short, what you could do then is actually just group these up together and do like languages and frameworks. And then you're down to fewer lines. But I'd probably do something like that as far as like laying that out. This is much more compact and gets the point across a little bit better than the vertical stack that you're doing here. Also, you've got this separator line here where you don't on the others. And this is, you've got these bars under career profile and career history. Oh, and then under skills. Okay, so you do that for each of your headings, but these headings are also in caps, where your skills block is not in caps. So again, you want to be consistent about those sorts of things. But what I wrote out takes up a lot less space than what you've written out here, and it also you can also then reorder these a little bit more as far as like which ones you're stronger in and which ones you understand a little bit better. And so what I might do there is like if you're applying for a particular company and they do more PHP than Go, then you would switch that up and you'd say, okay, well, I've done PHP and then I also happen to know Go, because you want to look like a PHP developer who knows Go as opposed to a Go developer that knows PHP. And so you'll reorder these skills based on the job post. So if the job post is looking for MongoDB with PHP, you're going to move MongoDB to the front of the list. Because as humans, when we read these lists, we're kind of sort of trained when we read lists that whatever we read first, you know best, and whatever you read last, you know not as well. And so if they're looking for a PHP developer who knows Mongo, I would just reverse the order, or just change up the order to be in sort of the order that you want to present yourself for that particular job. But that would be how I would actually sort of reimagine that skills block. Cool. Other than that, and then so the other advice that I give people when it comes to resumes. So again, we're still kind of looking at that whole, like, now we're onto this whole second page. I think if you got rid of this career profile and put your skills block in there instead, it's going to take up less space than the career profile. If you can take out this sort of outline around your name, that's also going to shrink up the top here a little bit. I think you could probably put your LinkedIn and your GitHub sort of side by side in here if you have GitHub. If not, it's fine. But I think you could also reduce the font size here. I usually tell people you get 3 font sizes for the whole page. One for your name, one for your headers, and one for everything else on the page. So what I would start by doing is make all of the text 10-point font. I would make the headers like 12-point font and make your name like 18 or 20-point font. That'll also bring this down to one page a little bit. But what I tell people, when you build a resume, put lots of information on here. Make a multi-page resume. Like my resume is like 3 or 4 pages long. And I store that as kind of a really long copy. And then when I'm ready to go apply for a job, I trim out everything that's not going to be important to that company, because it's a lot easier to delete stuff off a resume than to go rebuild a whole new resume from scratch and copy and paste a bunch of stuff around. And so what I tell people is, like, build one resume, format it the way that you want it, but add lots of bullet points for every job, lots of skills, lots of project work, that sort of thing. And then when you're ready to apply for a job, trim out everything that company isn't going to care about. So just zooming in on this a little bit, if this particular company doesn't care about hiring, like you're not going to be going for a hiring role, then you could probably take this first bullet point off. it's good to know you've been in a leadership position that you can do that kind of thing. But if it's not going to be part of your responsibility, you could take it off the resume, and it'll free up a little bit of space. And so as you're researching the company and as you're looking at the job post, you'll start to be able to figure out, okay, well, what is it on my resume that I can actually take off the resume to get it back down to one page? Now, you've been in the industry for a little while. You've been doing this for over a decade. I think it would be fine for you to have a two-page resume. I think you could go in and explain these things a little bit more, maybe break them out into more bullet points where you're explaining a little bit more about what you do. And so I think having, in your case, having a two-page resume is very applicable. But you just want to make sure that your second page isn't mostly empty space. The other thing that I would always do on a second page of a resume is put your contact information at the top again. It doesn't have to be this whole big, dark blue block with white font, but at least put your name and your contact information at the top of the second page again. So if those pages ever get separated, they know who it belongs to. But yeah, I would say if like as soon as you start using like a second page, you want to fill it up to about 2/3 of the page at a minimum. You don't have to go like top to bottom, edge to edge on that second page, but you want more than half of the page. I would say try to aim for like 2/3 of the page, if you can. So it'll give you opportunity to like explain a little bit more if you've got other like side projects that might be of interest to a particular company where you want to apply. Otherwise, I would try to bring it down to one page. If you can't, if that second page, if you really can't get it more than like a page and a half, then get it down to one page instead. If you and this also kind of applies to people that come from backgrounds that are not from tech. You also bring valuable skill and background from your other sort of work history and other life experiences that you're bringing to that job. And so I think that you could totally, have like a two-page resume where you're explaining more about your background, but then also explaining more of your technical skill and so on. Cool. Well, King 440, thanks for dropping that resume. Happy to do that kind of stuff on the chat here. So let's dig in here. I know while I'm doing that, I tend not to pay too much attention to chat. So let me drop into chat here a little bit. So Midnight Smith, thanks again for the bits. Theta Sig, thanks for the follow as well. I'll give you some blinky lights and some sort of hello greeting in the background. Let's see what else we got going on here. Excuse me, one sec. Sorry about that. Oh. There we go. Nope, still got something in my throat. Excuse me, I'm gonna hydrate for a sec. Let's see, what else did I miss in chat? Midnight Smith said sent. Did you send over a resume? Is that what you sent over? They just said good to see you in chat as well. Sorry, got something in my throat now. Kizu19, I'm glad I could make it. Sundays is church day for me. Cool. Appreciate you dropping by if you can. Switch screens. Hey, RC Maniac, good to see you as well. RC Maniac also loves to share advice and ideas and perspectives as well. So, so as I have people kind of come through and hang out in the community and help build other people up and so on and sort of share these thoughts and ideas, I mark them as a VIP. And so the little diamond that you see next to RC Maniac's name just indicates that I kind of like trust their input and trust their sort of their perspectives on things. And so if you see any of my, sorry, is that better? That's a little better. So if you see any of my VIPs dropping ideas and perspectives, just know that I trust them and I trust their opinions and their backgrounds and things like that. And so if RC Maniac were to offer some advice, I'm also going to either echo that sentiment or agree to disagree. I think it's okay to disagree respectfully on things too. If you ever notice a little diamond showing up in chat over there, definitely take to heart anything that they're sharing with you as well. Cool. We had an anonymous question come in, so we'll go take a look at that in a sec. Daddy Wazzy, happy Sundays. Fantastic info. Your resume is a menu about you in a way, and the menu must be appealing. Yeah, that's exactly right. So that resume just needs to be a really concise way of saying, here's the value I bring to entice me to call you. That's really what that resume is. The cover letter then gives more context and sort of flavor to like, like what the resume is. So when I think of the kind of the menu that Daddy Wazzy mentioned, I think of like the resume is the menu, and then if you've ever been at those restaurants where like the back page of the menu is like, here's the whole history of the restaurant and who the founder was or the creators and whatever. That's kind of how I see a cover letter. Miller says, I'll get VIP one day. Yeah, you will. Cool. Let's go address that anonymous question. Cool. So we had an anonymous question drop in chat, and I always appreciate folks that are willing to ask questions. This one came in anonymously. It says, as an international programmer at a junior or hobbyist level with no work experience, what are some good approaches to ingress into the web dev scene? I'm from South America, for what it's worth. Okay, so let me break this one down a little bit here. So the question is, I'm a junior hobbyist programmer. I have no professional work experience. What are some good approaches to sort of get into being a web developer? So if you're already doing some amount of web development, then you are a web developer. When you ask the question like, how do you get into sort of the web dev scene? If you're asking like how to get a professional job at that point, then it really comes down to what kinds of projects have you built and how have you built up that portfolio, and then how are you presenting that to other people as, here's an indication of the kind of work that I'm capable of doing. Because when it comes to applying to that job, again, as we've mentioned on the stream here and in lots of other streams, there are a few key things that you need to kind of get across in the interview. The primary one is why you should hire me. You should hire me because I'm bringing immediate value to your team. This is how I'm going to make the company better, how I'm going to make your team better. Now, as a junior, as a hobbyist, you might feel like, well, I'm not making the team better because I don't know as much as the rest of the team. But you're still bringing value to the team. You just have to learn how to explain that value. And so that value comes about from you showing them the kinds of projects that you've built. And so you will need to have some understanding of, these are the kinds of things that I've built. These are the kinds of things that I'm capable of making. These are things that, that interest me. These are projects and so on that I think are also appealing to you as a company. And this is the value that I bring from that. And so the first thing I would start out doing is build up that portfolio. Figure out, like, based on the kinds of companies where you want to apply for work, what kinds of projects are going to be appealing to them. I mentioned earlier on this stream, but I'll mention it again here. If you can research a company and find out, like, do they have some sort of tool that you can use, some kind of API, some sort of platform, some kind of SDK, software development kit, anything like that you can build into a project, do that. If they don't have any of that kind of tooling available, then as you do research about them and you find out who are their customers, who do they serve, what do they do, try to build a project that's similar to what they do. It doesn't have to be like a full blown, like, you're not trying to reinvent the company, but you could make like a much smaller scale version of it, or like a portion of it. Or maybe like if you let's say they've got some kind of platform like a dashboard kind of thing and you can log in, go build a little side project of like a feature that you would like to add to their website. Like, oh, what if a user could also do this on their profile? Go figure out how to build that. And then when you apply, just say, hey, I've been on your dashboard. I really like it. I had an idea for a profile thing for the user. What if they could also do this? Here's a project that I made because I'm really intrigued by your company. I'm really intrigued by what you do. I'd like to be a part of the team. And I've already kind of prototyped this thing out. I'd love to share that idea with the company, as an incoming developer, as a new developer. That kind of thing will really stand out to a company because it shows that you care enough about them that you've kind of gone above and beyond. As opposed to, hi, I'm Ian. I happen to have the technical skills that you had on that job post. I mean, they're certainly looking for that too, but when I'm hiring, I'm looking for people that care about me and care about my business and care about what my company does, not just that you have the technical skill. Like if you bring that other passion, that stands out way more than just the technical skill alone. And so I would start there. I would start by figuring out what kinds of projects can you present or work on. If you've already got some project work, then how do you build that up as a portfolio? And then how do you sort of present that portfolio? That could start with a really good resume, really good sort of cover letter, something like that to show. I think that those would all be good places to get started. Cyberpam, dropping a raid. Hello, Cyberpam. Good to have you drop by. Thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate that. Thanks so much. We're just doing a little bit of, we got a whole bunch of resume reviews, actually. I just got 2 more resume reviews dropped. And check it out. I have a change to make. See if you can catch it on the screen. We got a change to make. Ready? We just met our goal. We got a PayPal donation in for $50 for a private resume review, which I'm going to do later today, which means we have met our entire donation goal. So all this money is getting matched. So this is going to give us $2,500 to the Diversity in Tech fundraiser because I'm matching all of this. This was raised by all of you. This was raised by you giving me income as a streamer. So this is 100% of the money that I've made as a streamer over the past year through advertising and subs and bits and cheers and all that kind of stuff. All that money's been going into a pot. I'm matching that money, and my employer is adding another $1,500 on top of that. So the $2,500 that we've raised plus $1,500 from my employer means that Hack the Hood in a couple of weeks when I go to San Francisco, they're going to get $4,000. So super, super stoked about that. So thank you to everybody. Thank you so much for all the contributions and all the bits and all the subs and the gift subs and stuff like that. Totally appreciate it. Thank you so much. So Cyberpam, thanks for dropping by. Appreciate you trusting your community with mine. Thanks for swinging by. So we got a couple more resumes to go through. If anybody else is interested in a resume review here on the stream, I've been in, so give a bit of background to Cyberpam and her community. So I've been in the industry for 26 years. I've been a hiring manager. I've been a director of engineering. I've done lots of hiring. I'm a professional interviewer. And so I give a lot of people advice on how to get through the interview process with tech companies. I've coached people on getting jobs at FANG companies. I've mostly worked in startups myself. I currently work at Postman. If anybody uses Postman as a tool, I currently work at Postman and love my job over there. It's fantastic. And I'm actually going to be in San Francisco, not this coming week, but the following week. So I fly out next Monday and I'm going to be in San Francisco for a week. If anybody's in San Francisco and you want to grab a coffee or something, let me know. I'll be there the whole week. I'll be doing like meetings and events and stuff Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But I'll have some time on Monday and Friday, and then in the evenings, if anybody wants to grab a coffee or grab a breakfast or something like that, drop me a line. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me through the website. I've also got an email series where I explain, as a hiring manager, these are the kinds of questions that we ask during an interview, but this is why we ask these kinds of questions. So I don't necessarily go into, here's how to answer it perfectly. Lots of those resources out there already. I wanted to do something a little different. So the email series over here is really like, why do we ask these questions the way that we do? But one of the things that I like to do on the stream are these resume reviews. And so if you're interested, I do ask that you anonymize your name, your phone number, your email. I don't typically like to dox people on the internet, although we just did a resume where the person was okay showing their name and their phone number and things like that. But generally, I ask that people anonymize them. We also had someone drop an anonymous question as well. And so I want people to feel safe about asking questions on the stream. And so if you want to ask something anonymously, send a whisper over to the bot. I'm not logged in as the bot, and so I don't know who it's coming from. But if you want to ask a question and you don't want to put your name on it, you can send a whisper message over to the bot and it'll show up in chat as an anonymous question. And I'm happy to take those questions at any time. I have a small Discord community. You're welcome to come over there and chat and drop questions in there. Or you can just follow me on all the socials. I'll just drop all the links here. I use the same username on Twitch as I do on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. You can send me messages on those platforms as well if you want to connect, and just let me know that you found me through the stream so I know like why you're connecting. But drop me questions there as well, And I like to sort of kind of collect those as anonymized questions as well. Again, I like people to feel safe about asking questions and so on, and know that your name's not going to get attached to it. And say like, oh, CyberPam asked this question, because some people don't like being called out like that. So totally cool with taking anonymous questions. So we got 2 more resumes just sent in. Actually, sorry, one of them is the private one. So I did have one more come in. So let me go grab that one, and then we'll share the context around kind of the message that they left in the email, and then we will do that resume review. So let me pop that up here. Where's that other window? Nope. There it is. Cool. So we'll go look at this one. And then one of the things that I want to start doing more on the stream is actually showing people how I would help reformat your resume. And so I may like pull this in into a Google Doc. And so one thing that you can do if you want, if you don't want to send me over a PDF, you can actually drop a Google Doc link in here. But like, again, make sure that you scrub out your name and your address. Drop a Google Doc in here, and then I'll show you like how I might make some changes to it as well. Cool. Let's dive in on another resume review here. I'm going to switch over the screen. And so one of the things that I've built for my stream that you'll see show up in the chat up here is little clip markers that'll say like clip start and clip end. That's so that I can trim this out later as a YouTube video. I like to make shorter YouTube videos out of like asking and answering questions and doing resume reviews and job post critiques and things like that. And so you can go check out my YouTube channel as well if you like. I've got playlists on there for those, and you'll be able to go check those out as well. So let's dive in on a resume review. So we had an anonymized resume come in, and so we're going to do a quick review on that. So as with most resumes, what I like to do is kind of zoom out and take a look at what's on here. And this one's kind of a really long format. They're using up a good solid 4 pages on here. So we'll dive in a little bit on the overall format. So again, what I like to recommend to people is build a really big resume like this. But when you go to apply for a job, trim it back down to 1 or 2 pages, because companies aren't going to care about all the content on here. Even the European CV, which used to be a really gigantic sort of format document, you don't need that anymore, even in Europe anymore. I've actually spoken with European recruiters over there. They also prefer a 1 or 2 page resume nowadays. And so having something that you can kind of shorten back down to 2 pages would be ideal. And it's a lot easier to come back in and trim stuff out than it is to rebuild a resume from scratch. And so I like to use a riddle of how do you make a sculpture of an elephant? You start with a big block of concrete and you chip away everything that doesn't look like an elephant. You can do the same thing with a resume. How do you look like the best candidate for the job? You start with a big resume and you trim it back down to only the things that the company cares about, so you look like the best candidate for that job. So you only want to show them the skills and the things that they're actually going to care about on the resume. Hey, Whip, good to see you in chat. So let's dive in on this one a little bit. So they anonymize their contact information here, and then they immediately start with education. There are a lot of different feelings on like what should you put first on the resume. As a hiring manager, this is just my opinion. Everybody's got opinions. They're like armpits. Some of them stink. You don't have to take my advice on this, but as a hiring manager, I like to see the skills block first. I don't care as much about where you went to school. Now, some companies, like we looked at a job post earlier, and that job post, they basically required a CS degree. And so in that case, if there's like a super hard requirement that you have to have a specific degree or certification, then you want that up at the very top as well. But if you're applying for jobs that are not necessarily like where you don't need a CS degree, or in this case, they've got an engineering, they're a certified manufacturing engineer. They don't say where they went to school, but I imagine it's on the real resume. But if you're looking for, I might need a little more context on this one, but I'll go look at the incoming message in a moment. But generally, I would want to see a skills block at the top. Like, what are the core competencies that you're bringing to the job? Now, I do title my stream like Tech Interview Guide. That is the name of the website. You can literally type all that in your browser and it'll go find the website. But I do like to kind of offer generalized advice on things that are not specific to the tech industry or programming and things like that. And so we're going to go over this resume, and there's going to be a lot of stuff on here that I'm not going to be familiar with, and that's okay. So taking a look at the note that came with the resume: multiple years in the petrochemical industry and manufacturing, strong background in training, looking to see if I should leave off any work history or order things differently or other suggestions. So that's kind of the context that we're going to frame this in. So they're looking for just general layout, format, like what should I mention, what should I not mention. So again, with most resumes, as I've said earlier on this stream and other streams, you generally don't want your bullet points to wrap around multiple lines if you can help it. Having the vertical bar here doesn't make as much sense really for the job history as far as the timeline goes. Also, these timelines aren't all like vertically lined up. They're all kind of off in different places. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm going to rebuild your resume. So let me go back over here, and we're just going to use this document. Let me go reformat this page setup, do portrait mode. You didn't know you were going to get a customized resume on the stream today, did you? All right, let's see if we can grab a better copy and paste off of this PDF. Sometimes it's not always possible, but we'll see. Nope, it's really not going to do that for us. All right, so let's see if I can just open this in Google Doc or Google Drive. Let's see. Let me do this. Let me go over to Tech Guide. And I'm just going to drop the resume in there. And see if we can open it from here. Open Google Docs. And then I'm going to show you how I might reformat some of this as we go. There we go. Much better. So the first thing I do is I highlight everything on here. I say normal text, and I make everything 10-point font. So you get 3 font sizes on a resume. You get 1 font size for all the main content. You get 1 font size for your name and 1 font size for your headings. So we're going to come back in here, and your name is going to be like 18-point font. Headings like education, that's going to get 12-point font. So then this is your work history, so that's going to be 12-point font. And I might throw like a bold or something on there. So what you want to do is you want to start by making a right margin tab stop over here. So what I'm going to do in Google Docs is I'm just going to right click in here. I'm going to say add a right tab stop. And I'm going to put it over on that margin. So you can drag it from here. I'm just going to put it over on that margin. So now when I come over here to these dates, I can hit the tab and it automatically pushes that over here. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change these to just 3 letters. And instead of that vertical bar, I'm going to put a dash instead. It's more interruptive to the human mind to see a character that we're not used to seeing. That vertical bar is very interruptive to reading. And so that would be the first thing I would do is take out the vertical bars, just put dashes in there. But now these dates are all going to be lined up over on that right margin over here. So again, when we come back over here and I hit tab on this, now it's exactly lined up on that right margin, where in the original resume it wasn't. So I would be looking for things like that, like just try to find the easiest way possible of reformatting some of this if you can. And then as much as possible, again, we want to try to make these not go underneath the dates. And so operated the hydro treating and hydro cracking unit daily to meet target specs. So I would just say operated hydro heating / hydro heating unit. I would say like, yeah, daily, comma, meeting target specs of jet fuel, comma, butane. I mean, it doesn't quite stop before it gets underneath the date, but it's certainly short enough. So again, bullet points don't have to be grammatically correct. Performed lineup changes for various petroleum products to or from storage tanks and spheres. Ran the utilities unit daily, including reverse osmosis, cation systems, purifying feed water. So this is getting really long because you're explaining so many things in here. I might actually make this a bullet point, but like indent it a little bit as well. So the other thing with adding bullet points on here is you can actually drag these bullet points back to be more on that right margin, similar to what you've got here. This actually put that in as an actual character on the resume, copied over from the PDF. So what you might want to do is like indent that bullet point or something like that. But again, that's only going to matter if these bullet points are going to be something that that company is going to care about. So it's okay to like make that really big resume with all of this content on here, but then you still want to trim it down to one page. So you're kind of getting where I'm going with this as far as like reformatting that. So and then you could put all of this actually on this line here as well. So you've got the name of the company, and then you've got like your role, and then you've got the date kind of all on one line. That would be a way to sort of shorten this up a little bit so you're not using quite as much vertical space. And then I would just throw a bold or something on the name of the company, you know, things like that. So that was the first thing that I wanted to show is like, how do we get those dates all sort of aligned on this right margin? So now we can see that all these dates now line up here vertically, where in the original resume here, they didn't. Like this one's over on the right edge, but these lines aren't the same size. This one's actually over a little more on the left, and these dates don't all line up. And so those are the kinds of things where like people are going to look at it and go, huh, okay, it's a little off. And you don't want people to look at your resume and go, oh, that's a little off. And so having ways of like reformatting that where you can just push them all into like a sort of a right tab stop like that is going to be super helpful, just to align all those things a little bit better. Now, when it comes to these lines, I mean, take them or leave them. I like not having them on there, but I think it's okay to have them on there. We looked at a resume on the stream earlier that had horizontal rules on there, and I think that's okay too. But again, this font looks very different than the other fonts that you're kind of using on the page. This one had a dot after the word work. So again, you want to try to standardize on how these things are presented as much as possible. Now, the overall comment that we got with this was, you know, should I leave off any particular work history or order things differently? I would always order things in a chronological order. Now, in this case, you had a tiny bit of a gap between these two jobs, but that's totally fine. No one's going to care about a 2 or 3 month gap. If it's like more than 6 months long, you might need to explain it, but I would otherwise look at this and go, okay, you know, you took the holidays off and started a new job. Now, in this case, you were only there for 7 months, and it looks like you've been not working since. And so this might stand out to people as you're applying for a job of like, what have you been doing for the past year? So that would be one thing that might come up on a resume like this is, okay, you know, have you been unemployed? Have you been doing something else? Have you been taking other training? Like, what have you been doing with that time? And so this could be where you might want some kind of explanation, you know, maybe in a cover letter and say, like, I left that job in July 2021, and I've been sort of keeping up to date on industry standards by learning such and such and reviewing training materials. Like, what have you been doing with that year? They would probably want to know that kind of thing. Otherwise, like, you were at this job for 7 months, you're at this job for a year, you were at this job less than a year. Actually, this is the same company. So I wouldn't actually list this as a second option here. So let's go back over to the resume over here. So what I would do for that is instead of listing the company a second time, what I might do here, this would be where I would actually put these on different lines. So you're showing that you worked at the same company, just in 2 different roles. And then this was a different company. So now we can kind of see here, okay, well, we had one company with their with their title. Now in this case, because we're doing the title and date on one line different than the company name, then again, we want to standardize and do that for all of them, because you had multiple roles at this particular job. Now you may want to like throw like an italic or something on this just to show, you know, that there's a slight difference, or like an underline or something maybe instead, where you can show, you know, kind of that progression in skill. But otherwise, yeah, you're explaining a lot of stuff at that role. So what I would probably do, if you're applying for another role that's going to combine these kinds of skills, I think you could condense it and not explain quite as much about it. But I think, you know, I mean, obviously putting stuff like OSHA guidelines and things like that, like those are definitely going to stand out, because that's really important for, you know, petroleum production and so on. So those kinds of things will be very necessary. And then, you know, I'm using a tool called Grammarly, which finds all kinds of things like, you know, make sure you add those dashes and get rid of the thing. Now, in this case, it actually found the same text like over and over again. So you also don't want to be redundant on the resume and like listing the exact same, you know, create work orders and job packages using SAP, you know, like you've got this exact same text on all of these jobs. So I would probably find a way to condense that, but also not be repetitive, and listing it for like everything. Because when you think about it, you did it for operator 1, you also did it as operator 2. You know, yes, it is part of your job, but I think that you could find a way to do it in a less repetitive sort of fashion. So just looking for things like that. So the overall question was like, should I reduce anything about this? Yeah, like your Anheuser-Busch job here, you're explaining a lot of stuff. And again, you were at that job twice. So again, just having a slightly different way of laying that out, where it's easier to see, like the different roles that you had at that company. So I would do something like that, where they can see a little bit better, like, oh, it was a second role at the same company kind of thing. And then again, we want to be uniform and say like all my other job titles were underlined, so I'm also going to underline that one at the top. Just that way it makes it a little easier to sort of see from there. Now we get into a skills block. So that skills block is going to be a 12-point header. May want to throw a bold or something on that. And then we're getting into these kinds of things. So on one hand, I like that you're sort of quantifying like how much you've used these skills. So if we come down here to the skills block, you're quantifying for me like how many years of experience you actually have on these things. This could be really meaningful. Like that job post that we looked at from Valero at the beginning of the stream, they were calling out very specific quantities of time for very specific like technologies and skills and things like that. So that could be something that you might want to look into as well. One thing that stands out to me about this font is it looks like it's sort of it looks like it's compressed vertically. Like it looks like the letters got wider from this header here as opposed to the text that you're using here. So again, you want to make sure that everything is the same font on the page. So again, I would probably come in here and just highlight everything. Just make sure it's all the same font face. Like just make it all the same. As much as possible. You don't want to be too detailed as far as like trying to throw different kinds of font faces and stuff in here. You want the resume to be relatively simple to read. So other projects and stuff that you've done, these are all fine. Now, some of these projects you did at specific jobs, so I think that that's okay. Having awards on there will definitely stand out, especially if they're safety related. But again, like making sure that like this line break here doesn't happen would be helpful. And then again, these things could be pushed up against that right margin as well. Hobbies, 3D printing, hooray, 3D printing. Again, if the company doesn't care about this stuff, then you don't need to put the hobby on here. Hobbies are great for like really standing out to a company. So if you're going to go work at like a petrochemical company that's making 3D printing filaments or something, then yeah, putting 3D printing on as a hobby is relevant to that company. Most of these hobbies are not going to be relevant to any company. Now, the electronics programming might be. If you do a little bit of coding, you could probably also list that in your skills here, because you mentioned like Fusion 360 and so on. But again, like that's only going to be important for specific kinds of roles. If a company doesn't need you to do 3D modeling, take it off the resume. You want the resume to only show them the immediate value and skill that you're bringing to them for their job post. If you need extra room, like if you need to finish filling up a second page, then you can add additional stuff as you see fit. But otherwise, I would try to remove as much as possible that's not going to be applicable. It's neat that you have the experience, but because it's not required at that particular job, it's just taking up space, and you don't want to send somebody a 4-page resume. No one's going to read it. They're going to read through page 1. Page 1 should be the most pertinent information. Page 2 should be kind of supplemental, like this is also really good to know, and then kind of cap it there. So again, starting with a really big resume, great idea, but trim it back down to like 1 page or 2 page when you're actually ready to apply for a job. That's what I would aim for there. Midnight Smith says 1 font, noting that down. 3 sizes, but 1 font. Yeah, as much as possible. I would stick with 1 font. Those 3 sizes, so 1 font size for all of the content, which I typically aim for like 10-point font. Your headers can be a second font size. I would typically aim for like a 12-point font, and then like put it all in caps or put a bold or something so it kind of stands out a little bit more. And then your name, like whatever your full name is, and whether you want to throw a bold on there, whatever. But again, that way it all looks more uniform from that perspective. It all kind of looks the same. Some people are going to look at that and go, oh, it's too plain. Like I want to add some like, sort of flavor or whatever. Well, then put some color in there. Like you can, it's like you want your name to be kind of that cobalt blue. Fine. Make some of the headers like a slightly different color then, but be consistent. Make them all that same color, but like don't go overboard. The first resume that we reviewed on the stream had a big block header, which is fine. That big block header is okay. People that print out your resume on a black and white printer are probably going to hate you if you do that too much because you're going to use up a ton of toner. But just as long as the contrast is good, then a little bit of color is fine. If you want like a block header at the very top, that's okay too. Again, similar to what we said in another resume review that was multiple pages, you also want to make sure that the second page also has your contact information at the top. So if the pages ever do get separated, then they know who the second page belongs to. So that'd be a handful of things there. Hey, MayBC, good to see you in chat. I'll go back through chat here in a minute and kind of catch up on some other stuff. So that would be kind of how I would take a look at that. Let me show you. Let me show you one of my resumes. Well, this is how I formatted one of my resumes for getting my developer relations role at Postman. So in my case, I do put a summary on here because I do want to show that immediate value. Like this is what I bring. I'm a trainer. I do live streaming. I do webinars. I do workshops. I've got experience in multiple languages and so on. And so in my case, I really wanted to emphasize that. And then I immediately go into my skills block. Now, I know a whole lot more skills than what I list here, but these are the core skills that I want to present as, this is what I do, this is what I'm capable of. And then most relevant experience. And then I put a thing on here, like if you want my whole work history, go check out my LinkedIn. And that's up here at the top. So they can go see my LinkedIn profile and they will literally see every job I've ever had and lots of bullet points on everything. So my LinkedIn is what I call sort of my source of truth, as we might call it. And so my resume here is like, this is the most relevant stuff you need to know. And then my second page, this is the other notable experience. Like this is other experience that I really want you to know about me, but it's not as important as page 1. Like if you print this on a printer and you walk away from page 1 and page 2 is still printing and all you walk away with is page 1, you still have everything you need to know about me wanting your job. Page 2 is like the icing on the cake, as I would say. It's extra stuff. I was a director of engineering. I worked at a game company, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then some of my education that I put on here. And then my cover letter. Now I typically tell people do a three paragraph cover letter. I kind of deviated from that myself. But you know, this is the cover letter that I wrote. So hopefully that'll give you some ideas too, as far as like layout goes. But again, same thing with that right justification sort of margin over here. And as much as possible, I tried to sort of keep text away from here as well, so you can kind of see these dates in sort of that visual column, even though I haven't specifically made it like a table column. Now, as far as laying this out, I actually did put these into table. I actually made like a 3-column table for my contact information at the top, just so I could lay that out more horizontally as opposed to taking up vertical space. You can take that or leave it, but that's an example of how I did my resume for various developer relations roles, and or developer roles, director level roles. And my job hunt back in December and January, I got 6 job offers out of it. So, and that's not just the resume. I mean, the resume is just to get them to call you, and then you have to get through the interviews. But these resumes were formatted well enough that it got them to call me. And then from there, I had to make it through the interview. Cool. So hopefully that answered everything that we needed over here for Nick. So again, I think starting with a really big resume like this and then eventually trimming it down to 1 page or 2 pages, I think would be ideal. Now, depending on the kind of role where you're going to go apply, you know, do you need to give me like tons of bullet points about every job? Probably not. You could probably get away with like just the 2 most important bullet points that you need to tell me about a job from several years ago. Like this job was almost a decade ago. Well, I mean, 5 years ago, I guess, was when you stopped at that job. But like that would be the kind of thing that I would look at, is like, how recent is the job? The less recent the job is, the fewer bullet points you should give me as well. And so your most recent job, give me lots of bullet points. Like 5 bullet points here, totally okay. Marathon, it's less recent. I'd probably go to 3 bullet points for this role, maybe 3 bullet points for this other role at the same company. And then Anheuser-Busch, like maybe condense that down to 2 bullet points of like the key things. And you can always, you know, you can put a little note on there, like steal what I did on mine, where you can say like, you know, for the full history, go see my LinkedIn, go put all of this stuff on LinkedIn. And so if they want to see like all of that detail, they can go to LinkedIn and they'll see all the bullet points. That would be what I would do there. Just that way you're condensing to only showing them like the highlights of what you did at that job, and not every single like job detail that you did. You want to show them like this was what I did and this was the impact that it had. So when we're writing out bullet points like this, we talk about using action verbs like I developed, I created, I made, you know, I hired, whatever, but then quantify it if you can, and then tell me what impact that had. So how did that help the company? How did that improve a process? If you say I improved, you know, compilation time of our software, okay, great. By how much? Like 5%, 10%, 50%? Like how much better did you make it? And then what impact did that have on the team? You know, it led to an overall team process improvement or whatever. That kind of stuff looks great on a resume. So having action verbs where you can quantify some information but talk about the impact. So over time, like you had several roles at Anheuser-Busch as well. So again, 2 bullet points for this role, maybe 2 bullet points for this role, but don't put the same bullet point. So again, we kind of come back up here and you have this bullet point of created the work orders using SAP. Like tell me that once on the resume. Don't tell me that same thing at every job. Tell me something a little different. And then you can say like, yeah, I actually did this at all of these other jobs, but for the sake of the resume, I condensed it, whatever. You can explain that once you get into the interview process. So that would be how I would kind of condense that stuff down a little bit. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, cool. Thanks for the resumes there. Let's see. Cool. So I got one more private one I'm going to record later today, and I'll get that one out. Let me catch back up on chat a little bit. Where and when are cover letters useful? So we had a question in chat of when and where are cover letters useful. I mean, I try to tell people to write a cover letter always. Not everybody's got that kind of time. Not everybody wants to spend time crafting out a cover letter. But the nice thing is that, like, in the cover letter, aside from explaining in that first paragraph, like why you're applying for their job, most of the second and third paragraphs are going to be the same. So you can copy probably 80% of that text and just change a little bit and then send that cover letter over. So as you get used to writing cover letters, and you can go check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ian Douglas, you can go see an example video that I have over there of how to build a cover letter for the tech industry, where I kind of go through and explain like what's relevant and why. In the past, like pre-COVID days, only about 30% of recruiters even read cover letters. When COVID hit and companies were starting to be a lot more particular about who they hired, I heard from one recruiter, one source, that number actually went up to 80%. So 80% of recruiters were then reading cover letters because they wanted to be really careful about who they hired. Nowadays, that may drop a little bit again, but I mean, even if it's back down to that 30% kind of range, I usually tell people, like, do you really want to disappoint 1/3 of the people that are looking at your application? Like, you don't know who's going to be reading it or not. So I would say, like, send it in anyway. So yeah, I would say as much as possible, because it is helpful to give the context to what you have on your resume. Your resume is that, list of pertinent skills that you're bringing to the company. These are the hard skills that I'm bringing, but the cover letter gives a little more context into why those skills are important to you, why you've practiced or learned particular skills, and why you care about their job. You can't really tell them that on the resume. The resume is just, I know this programming language, I've used this framework, I've built these projects, I've worked at these jobs, but it doesn't really tell them why you care about their job. The cover letter gives you that opportunity. Yes, the fact that you're applying for that job shows them that you're interested in the job, but you could just be interested in a paycheck. Like, why are you interested in my company? Why are you interested in this job? That's what the cover letter's for. It's to really grab my attention of, like, you need to hire me because reasons. Not just the technical skills that I have on my resume, but like, this is why I'm really interested in this particular industry and you're a leader in that industry. Or, I've been using your software for a while, or I've been using your API or your library and projects, and I love it so much, I want to be a part of your company. Like, it drastically changes that introduction, as opposed to just, here's a resume and nothing else, no context about why they want that job. Follow-up in question, would you feel it isn't necessary to write a cover letter if you networked your way in, like the person is referring you and tells you to apply? In that case, I would probably just send a resume. If somebody is specifically referring you for a job, you probably only need a resume. You could still write a quick cover letter and just say, hey, I was introduced to this role by Melaruru. As I researched the company, I found it was, really interesting, and these are reasons that this particular role really stands out to me. Here are the skills that I have, and I'm available for a phone call, in the afternoons, whatever sort of thing you want to kind of wrap up that third paragraph. But again, you want that third paragraph of the cover letter to finish with a strong sort of call to action, as we call it, where it's not like, I look forward to hearing from you someday, maybe. Like, you want to kind of trigger that psychological, like, oh, we're going to miss out if we don't call them, like, really soon. You can say, I'm actively interviewing for the next 3 or 4 weeks. You can reach me in the afternoons. Now they've got a timeline. They know they have to call you. They know that you're only interviewing for 3 or 4 weeks, so they can kind of count backwards and go, well, if it takes us 3 weeks to get through this process, we need to get them on the phone now. Otherwise we're going to miss out on this as an opportunity. And so you can really sort of trigger that reaction in someone reading that cover letter by wording it that way. And just say, I'm interviewing for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and you can reach me in the mornings, you can reach me in the afternoons, you can reach me all day. I work from home. You can call me, anytime during working hours. It sends a much stronger signal than, like, I hope you call me someday, maybe, possibly. Yeah, be confident about it. Exactly. Yep. Cool. Let me scroll back to your chat. I know I missed a whole bunch of stuff when I was going through the resume stuff there. Creative Bear, good to see you in chat. Grammarly is fantastic. I do a lot of document reviews. It catches a lot. Yeah, I use it. I've been using it quite a bit now for about a year. It isn't perfect though, but it's better than default spell check for sure. Although Google Doc has got a bunch of grammar checking and stuff built in, so the two of them combined does a pretty good job. But again, if you're applying for a software developer role, I'm probably not going to expect you to be like a top-notch technical writer. But if you're a top-notch technical writer, you know, I would really hope that you're using tools like that to catch that sort of thing. What else did I miss? I like the earlier statement. Good master long resume and trimming to relevancy. Yeah, that's my primary advice on building a resume. Make a really big copy, make a really big version with every job, 6, 7, 8 bullet points for every job, every role. Tell me lots of information about it. And then when you want to go apply for a job, you make a copy of it. So you've got that one sort of main copy that you always add new things to all the time on an ongoing basis. Like whenever you do, pick up some new skill at work, do some new project at work, go add that to your resume right away, or add it to your LinkedIn so that you can like recall that stuff later on. Add it to that really big resume, copy it, and then when you're ready to apply for the job, you take that copy and you trim it down to 1 or 2 pages to only the most relevant things that company is going to care about for that particular role. And just it's going to help you really condense things and really stand out with a really highly tailored resume. Save that as a copy, save it as like your name _ company name _ 2022.pdf or something. Don't save it as like resume.pdf because, show some originality. Plus, if they're downloading all the resumes, then they end up with like resume.pdf, resume1.pdf, resume2.pdf, and they don't know whose is whose. So always name your resumes in like however you're storing them. Your name _ company name _ like 2022, like whatever the year is, .pdf. And we've had people on the stream in the past. If anybody remembers, Jonan Scheffler, fantastic guy, really fantastic to talk to. He and I kind of agreed to disagree on what file format to send your resume in, but we did kind of conclude that if you're sending it to a human being, it should be a PDF. If you're sending it to an applicant tracking system, it should be a Microsoft Word document. ATS systems, the applicant tracking systems, ATSs, they tend to parse Word documents better than PDF files, but it can still be problematic depending on what's generating the PDF file if you upload a PDF into the applicant tracking system. The downside is you don't typically get to send both. You get to send one or the other. I generally recommend try to send it in a Word doc format if you can. But people will agree to disagree. We'll leave it at that. Cool. Let's see what else is going on here. Make the whole background light gray with a blue font. Use all the toner. I mean, I've seen resumes where it's like, really thick, left column with like a really dark color with a light contrast, like visually very appealing in color. But you have to remember, like, if it does get printed out, most people are just going to be printing it on a black and white printer and they're going to hate you for it. So I usually tell people, like, what if you're ever curious how it's going to look, if you don't have a printer yourself, you can always just open up print preview in your browser and it'll show you what it's going to look like on a black and white printer. See what else I missed in here. Can I have the link to my CV? Could use your CV for design reference? Sure. I will drop that link as soon as I find it. I mean, you've all seen my phone number now. Let me scrub it a little bit and I'll post that. So I put all these streams up online afterwards, so I'll put a link to it in the YouTube description later on. So I'll scrub it out a little bit and put it online for you. Let's see. Cool. Awesome. Hopefully that was helpful with folks. If you've got other questions, please drop them in chat. I'm happy to kind of hang out and chat for a little bit. Otherwise, we've been going for 2 hours. This is typically kind of my target, but I'm not gonna leave just yet. If you do have other questions, I'm happy to address those. Got lots of folks in chat, so feel free to to drop some hellos. If you got other questions, if you'd also like a resume review, you can certainly send in a resume. If you just want me to take a look at something, if you want like a portfolio review, if you want me to look over your GitHub or your LinkedIn, feel free to drop your LinkedIn links in here. If you join the Discord community, I've got a whole channel in there for introductions, and you can drop your LinkedIn, or actually I've got a whole channel just for LinkedIn profiles. So if you want to share your LinkedIn profiles and connect with one another, feel free to do that if you're comfortable doing it. Otherwise, we'll just stay and hang out. I might grab an anonymous question out of Discord while we wait. Actually, so I mentioned the email series earlier. I'll drop that link in here again. So with the email series, you can reply to any of those emails and it comes straight to my inbox. And so if you ever have questions about the content or if you have feedback on it, you're welcome to just hit reply on any of those messages. It gets straight to me. I did have an anonymous question come in as a reply to one of those messages that I did want to answer. So let me go find that real quick. And again, when folks ask questions like this, I never say your name. So I had a reply come in from the daily email series from a user saying, hey Ian, hope you're doing great. I wanted to ask, what do you think about FreeCodeCamp? I'm following the front end path there. I wanted to get your opinion. Thanks in advance for your time. I really like FreeCodeCamp. I say any kind of structured curriculum for teaching yourself things, I think is fine. It's where things feel a little bit unstructured. You don't really have deadlines, is where it can start to feel a little bit nebulous. And by explanation on that, you can go to websites where they've got like training material like Udemy, and there's no due dates. It's just a bunch of pre-recorded videos and a bunch of pre-recorded sorts of things. And there's not a strong sense of community, like, oh, go hang out in the forums, go chat with one another, help like hold each other accountable to getting things finished. You don't really have that sense of community on those kinds of sites. FreeCodeCamp, on the other hand, is a great community. People there love to kind of work together, work on projects with one another, really encourage one another. I think of other sites like 100 Devs. Well, not really a site. I mean, it's a gigantic community of folks, and it's a fantastic community. And Leon's doing a really great job kind of like helping train people up, and they've got their whole own Discord server and lots of folks streaming all the time about 100 Devs. Great community because people are holding each other accountable to finishing things. Now, if life jumps up and surprises you and you can't finish something, that's fine. You can kind of restart and so on, but it's about having that community, and that's what we're trying to build up here, with my own Twitch community here, is we're trying to build up a community of people helping one another. And that's why I like communities like FreeCodeCamp, 100 Devs, and so on, and even to some degree the 100 Days of Code hashtag that you'll see on Twitter. There's a lot of opportunity there to help be part of that community and help that community continue to grow. That's the important part about it. When you're just taking self-directed learning where there's no timeline, there's no obligation, even if you pay like a couple of bucks for the course, there's nothing on the other side of it as far as like a certification or something like that. Even programs like Udacity, they've got really good structured curriculum, but then they can also introduce due dates of when you need to have projects finished by. Plus, it's an expensive program, and so the faster you can get through it, the better. And so you have an incentive to go through it and actually do the work, where some of the self-directed things, there's no timeline, there's no due date. It's kind of, you can work at your own pace, and there's benefit to that as well. You shouldn't feel obligated to work in a really high pressure environment, especially if you're maybe working another job or you have family to take care of. You don't have that position of privilege to just drop everything and just study. Not everybody has that. So there is benefit to having that self-paced sort of learning as well. The downside with the self-paced learning is it's self-paced and there's not usually as much accountability. So having communities like FreeCodeCamp, I really like it because you can hold each other accountable. You can encourage one another. You can say, hey, if you need help, let me jump in and help you with that. Or some self-directed learning where you just sign up and you get some material to go study. You don't always have that level of community and that accountability to help you sort of stay on focus and stay on task and actually get things finished. I have so many Udemy courses that I bought over the years that I've barely ever opened, much less finished. I don't think I've ever finished a Udemy program and I've bought dozens and dozens of them over the years. And I'll start to kind of go through it and then I'd be like, okay, well, I got through like 1 or 2 lessons. Now I just want to go build on the thing. And I learn just as much, going through that and going through Stack Overflow. And for myself, it's kind of my own project-based learning where I find a topic that I want to learn. I go think of a project for that and I go build my own project. Like I build stuff for the Twitch bot here on Twitch, where I can clip out these little audio samples and video samples and things like that. That was something that I wanted to learn a little bit more about how Twitch can operate. I wanted to learn how Airtable worked. So I'm pushing all the stuff up into Airtable and then I can grab it down later and actually process through. And well, how do I actually process video? How do I actually like clip those things out? How do I get audio out of that? These were things that I just wanted to learn. And so I built myself a project to go learn those things. But there's no accountability. I've wanted to rebuild this whole clip thing for months and months and months, and there's been no accountability for it. So when you have that accountability, it can help keep you on task and help keep you on track. So some communities have that and some don't. I would say no matter what kind of online learning program you're doing, as long as you've got some kind of community and accountability to work through it, I think you're going to be better off and you'll be more successful. Doesn't mean you can't succeed working on things by yourself, but I think having a community around you that can help you and help support you, even if it's just, to hear you vent and, talk a little bit about, hey, life is hard right now. I'm way behind. I'm stuck on this thing. Sometimes you just need someone there to listen. And it's nice to have that community there to just be there, even just to listen, if nothing else. Kizu19 asks in chat, what do you think about profile pictures on a resume? Nope. Absolutely no. Never. Same thing with geographic location. I would take the geographic location off your resume unless it's a job in a specific area and you want them to know or think that you live in that geographic area, so they're more likely to call you. For example, at the beginning of the stream, we looked at a job post from Valero in, I think, San Antonio, Texas, and it was on premise only. It was not a remote job at all. And so you would want to put like San Antonio, Texas on your resume to make them think that you're already there. And if you get the job, then you relocate. And if they ask you to, hey, can you drop by tomorrow for an interview? It's like, I can come in a couple of days and, cheapairline.com or whatever, and like go book an airplane ticket. Or you can just you can say like, hey, I'm expecting to move to San Antonio, Texas in anticipation of getting a job with Valero or whoever. Not like, you don't want to make it sound like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to move there because I'm absolutely going to get your job. But you want to make it sound like, hey, I'm already planning to move to San Antonio. I'm not there yet. So I'm job hunting, I'm interviewing with companies there. I'll fly out there for interviews and so on. And then you can talk to them about reimbursing travel for those interviews. But generally, don't put anything that can bias against you on a resume. So keep the photos off of there. Keep your geographic location off of there. If it's a remote job, putting a time zone on there could be really helpful for them so they know what time zone you're in. Or you could just say like what state you're in, like state and country or province and country. That's really all they need to know. They don't really need anything more granular than that. What if they're willing to pay to relocate you? I mean, if they're going to pay to relocate you, then that's fantastic. You can sometimes negotiate that once you get the job offer, or it may be part of the job offer itself, and just say like, hey, if you're not already here. Now, if you say like, I'm already looking to move to that area, and they say, okay, well, we'll offer you the job, then you can say, hey, could you help, with the relocation? That can be part of the negotiation process from there. Some companies will be okay with that. Or you can ask them for a signing bonus. The signing bonus is a one-time cash payout. It is taxable. And so if they offer you, say, $5,000 or $10,000 as a signing bonus, it is taxed. And so you'll probably only get to keep maybe 60 to 70% of it, depending on your tax bracket. And so don't spend all of it like you've got all of that as cash, because you will get taxed. But if they can pay you any sort of signing bonus like that, then you can use that to relocate. For some companies, though, it's actually advantageous for them to reimburse your moving expenses because they can use that in some circumstances as a tax write-off themselves for relocating employees to their area. And so there is benefit to a company to having a relocation reimbursement kind of thing. And it'll typically be like, whatever the IRS, presuming the United States, whatever the IRS will allow you to, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of claim on your taxes or whatever, as a reimbursable expense. So like a moving truck, a couple of meals, maybe lodging if you're like traveling multiple days, like cheap hotel, not like super, super expensive hotel, but like, reasonable lodging, reasonable meals. And then like the moving truck and like any expenses for packing and things like that, are generally reimbursable by a company because they can get an IRS write-off for that. Midnight Smith asked in chat, I've had many companies asking if I was willing to relocate and saying yes was a plus. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, tell them, if you really are able, like, you don't want to say like, oh yeah, I'll totally move. And then you get the job offer and you're like, just kidding. But if you need help with relocation, I know of companies that are like, oh, you own a house, we'll buy the house from you. We'll get you set up with some new house. And then like, we'll take care of like how to sell your house later. Kind of thing. Like I've seen companies go to that extreme. Some of them won't, but some of them will say like, hey, we'll help you with real estate expenses and whatever to like get your house listed, get it sold, get you, set up in something new, or, we'll fly you out and like look around with a real estate agent or whatever. Like they'll assist with that in some manner. Again, depending on the role, depending on the level, like they probably won't do that for an entry level dev. But for more senior level devs and principal level devs and directors and upward, they'll certainly jump through those hoops for you and help you out there. But at the very least, if they're asking if you are willing to relocate and you say yes, then there will be an expectation that you will relocate if they offer it. If you say yes, I am willing to relocate, and then you say like, nah, I think I'd rather stay here, it's not necessarily a deal breaker. Like they may not pull the job offer from you, but it is showing them that maybe you weren't 100% honest. Like if there are reasons why you may want to stay, like you could bring that up and say, well, I could relocate in the summer when my kids are out of school, but I can't pull them out of school during the school year. That's totally reasonable ask. So maybe they'll let you work remote until May or June of the following year, and then the expectation is you're going to relocate after that. That's why you see so many houses go on the housing market around that time of year, and a lot of houses sell over the summer because people are moving specifically while their kids are out of school. Midnight Smith says, I applied for something 2,000 miles away. They were willing to offer me the job provided I was willing to move. Yeah. I mean, the job post or the job offer could be contingent on those kinds of things. And so you just need to work that out with them. But you can negotiate the timing. You can negotiate the expenses involved in that. You can negotiate all of that. Whether it's actually negotiable on their side is another thing, but you should always negotiate for that kind of stuff, especially if they're asking you to relocate. Then you could say, if you expect me to move there, then you better help me like get set up in an apartment or, temporarily until we can kind of look around, look for a house, like, whatever that may be for you, and what your needs are. They can, if that's their expectation, then you should put an expectation on them that they're going to assist with it. King 440 says, most companies hire candidates from their time zone. For example, in the job description, I write a US time zone only. It has become difficult for me to find a remote job. It can be. I think a lot of companies are starting to like say, hey, come back to the office. Like, don't just work remote 100% anymore. Companies are still being pretty flexible about it, but some companies are starting to require that you're going to be, in the office at some point. There was something else that I saw recently on the news. Somebody in California was trying to sue Amazon. Like, they're an Amazon employee. They were trying to sue Amazon for additional work from home expenses because their electricity bill went up, their internet bill went up, like all these other bills went up because they were working at home as opposed to driving. And in California, I guess they've got a law that says that employers have to pay all remote expenses for something like that. But Amazon's trying to fight it, saying that because it was an emergency order to send people to work at home, that it wasn't really their call and whatever. So they're kind of going back on the legal front. But they said the employee is likely to win because it is California law that employers have to pay for that kind of thing. The downside is that companies could say, okay, nobody gets to work from home anymore. You have to come back to the office. And now what you're going to be paying for gas to drive to the office is going to be a lot more money than what you would have spent just paying for the electricity and internet bill out of your own pocket. So there's a trade-off that needs to be made there. But I think in the tech industry especially, I think companies are still willing to be flexible on work from home versus be at the office or some sort of hybrid. Whether it's a U.S. time zone depends on their needs. For the kind of work that I do, it's nice to have people spread across multiple time zones so that we can hit different events in different areas for like technical events and conferences and so on, as opposed to, we're all based in California, but now somebody's got to fly to the East Coast. So having people in various time zones is actually beneficial for the kind of work I do. For a programming job, it's more beneficial to have clusters of programmers on the same team in nearby time zones so that you're not working drastically different work hours. But it's a little different for everybody. Midnight Smith says a lot of people applied out of state the last few years, and once they left, they got offers. Oh, and left once they got offers. Seems like a bad idea for a company to only look at people from the same geographic area. It varies a lot on the industry and who the company is and what their needs are. If they're literally just a software development company and they're set up to be remote and they've got a good process for being remote, then they're generally going to be okay with people staying remote. But it does come down to like productivity levels and that sort of thing. Like if you're not productive working from home, then maybe you do need the discipline of going to the office where you've got that discipline. Or it's not like, oh, I'm here at home, I should probably go put in a load of laundry, but then when I walk up to the laundry, I see the sink full of dishes, and so I want to do the dishes, and meanwhile I'm like, oh, and it's kind of warm in the house, why isn't the air conditioner on? Oh, the air conditioner's broken, so let me go try and fix the air conditioner. Meanwhile, I didn't get any work done. And so it can be problematic to work from home, and so for me, I've had to have a very strict discipline of get up in the morning, shower, put on my shoes, go outside for a quick little walk around the neighborhood. That's sort of my commute, whether I walk the dog or just, do something myself where I have like a commute sort of like process or procedure of, I come down to the basement, I make myself a coffee. I've got like a hot coffee pot and I've got cold brew kind of thing. So whatever I want to drink or like my protein drinks or whatever, like, I prepare all of that. I maybe get a snack and then I sit down and I turn on whatever lights I need, or I turn off whatever lights I don't need. And then I get down and I do my work, and I try to be very disciplined about it, but it's tricky and it's a little bit different for everybody. So, excuse me a sec. Cool. Well, if you've got other questions, I'm happy to address those. Otherwise, we've been going for 2.5 hours. Might start to wind down. We'll see if we can go raid somebody. And then let's go see if anybody's online. Midnight Smith says, consider a director level person. Those are usually in-person jobs. Would someone at that level applying to a position out of state be as at risk of being passed over? Again, I think it depends a little bit on the company. I mean, I've had remote director jobs. Like working at Stream last summer, I had a director level role. I was offered a director level role back in January, and it was also 100% remote. The company was based in Seattle, but they let their entire company be 100% remote with no expectation of being back in person. So it does vary a lot based on the company. All right, let's see, who can we go raid? Got a handful of people I think that we could go consider raiding. I will go see what they're up to, and we'll go from there. Gonna wait for some ads to finish. Gotta love ads. All right, I'll wait for some ads to finish, and then we'll see if someone we want to go raid. If you've got if anybody has opinions on who you'd like to go raid, feel free to drop those in chat, and we can consider those as well. Let's see, we got one person working in some JavaScript. And we got someone working on some JavaScript. Let's see, eeny, meeny, miny, potato. Let's see, there's someone from 100 devs, somebody from not 100 devs. I think we'll go right into the 100 devs person. Cool. We'll go right into Mayan Wolf. Yeah, I thought about rating Chris, but I didn't want to interrupt his interview. We'll go right into Mayan Wolf. JavaScript developer, part of 100 devs, software engineer, SQL developer, enjoy streaming about coding concepts and teaching others. And that's exactly what I love. I love people that are willing to share their knowledge and help other people grow. So we'll go right over there, make some noise when we get over there. Thanks again for the resumes and the job posts and stuff, and we'll catch you on Thursday. Have a good day, folks.